Sindh Province, Pakistan. 1922, an officer of the Archaeological Survey of India is led by a Buddhist monk to an area believed to have been a religious monument. But under the mounds of dirt, archaeologists find instead an ancient Indus Valley city dating back to 2000 BC. It is called Mohenjodaro, or Mound of the Dead, and it is one of the oldest civilizations discovered in the world. The city of Mohenjodaro rivaled the ancient civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Archaeologists believe that over 35,000 people once occupied the city. However, only 43 skeletons have been discovered at the site. There are many theories surrounding the mysterious disappearance of the Indus people from Mohenjo-daro. In 1977, British researcher David Davenport discovered that part of the archaeological site showed evidence of having been destroyed by an extremely powerful explosion.
He found what remains of the blast, and he believed that this area was the epicenter of something that he believed was an explosion that destroyed a part of the city. And he found the evidence of vitrified pottery bricks that were totally fused, melted, or vitrified.
In 2014, mineralogist Dr. Sam Iyengar was able to obtain a piece of fused pottery from Mohenjo-daro and put it through a series of tests.
When I did the elemental analysis, it showed me that the Mohenjo-daro rock contained mostly silicon, aluminum with some calcium and potassium. So my thought was maybe it could be some type of a clay, till I did the X-ray diffraction.
X-ray diffraction is able to determine exactly how a material was formed.
This is the pattern I got, and you can see some crystalline peaks here along with an amorphous hump, which usually results from a glassy phase in the rock. The composition is very similar to volcanic rock. The only way the clay can be converted into something which we saw is subjecting the clay to a very, very high temperature. I'm talking 4,000 to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not something an early civilization can do intentionally. It has to be something supernatural.
Could this pottery sample, which shows irrefutable evidence of having been subjected to extreme heat, be definitive evidence that Mohenjo-daro really was the site of some type of powerful explosion in the ancient past? David Davenport and other researchers of India's ancient Vedic texts have suggested that this is the case, and that Mohenjo-daro may in fact be the kingdom of Lanka, a city whose destruction is detailed in the Indian epic known as the Ramayana. In the Ramayana, it is described that the god Vishnu decides the leader of Lanka, a mortal named Ravana, has grown too powerful. Vishnu takes the human form of Rama and does battle with Ravana, who has become like the gods himself.
It was described as the sun turning into 50 even more brighter suns with this incredible blast. So some people have suggested that perhaps at Mohenjo-daro some type of a nuclear blast occurred. Not only do we have a textual reference to a possible nuclear blast, but we also find physical evidence that show vitrification of stone. And the only way that stone can be vitrified is if it's exposed to extreme heat.
I happen to believe that mankind possessed incredible technology, incredible knowledge, and that they did things that we're doing right now, and then something happened, and they had to literally start all over again. Whoever got involved said, that's not gonna happen. Let's let them have knowledge, but not too much knowledge. And I think that's probably what's happening here.
These extraterrestrials wouldn't want us to have access to these advanced technologies and essentially become like gods. but they may have a keen interest in A, following some sort of prime directive so they don't openly interfere with us so that everybody knows they exist, but B, also making sure that we don't destroy the planet.
The Sun Temple at Abu Ghurab, Memphis, Egypt. In 1898, an excavation team with the Berlin Museum discovered the base of a massive obelisk, estimated to have once stood at over 160 feet tall.
According to the ancient Egyptian building texts from Edfu, Abu Ghurab was known as the place of the gods. Egyptologists know it as a place where the ancients connected with divine energies. It is said that this is the very place where pharaohs and priests experienced heightened awareness through the use of vibrations transmitted through the obelisk.
While scholars believe Abu Ghurab was home to one of the largest obelisks ever constructed, similar shaped monoliths have been found in hundreds of variations all over the world. Unsuitable for shelter, storage, or a higher vantage point, could obelisks have served another, more powerful purpose? A vast number of obelisks are constructed from granite, a stone containing high concentrations of energy-responsive quartz crystal. Because of its crystalline structure, quartz has the ability to convert the Earth's natural electrical vibrations into usable energy by a property known as piezoelectricity.
The piezo is for the vibrating or oscillating, and the electric is for electric. What this means is that you can use electricity to make them vibrate mechanically, and when they vibrate mechanically, they can generate electricity.
Is it possible the ancient cultures that erected obelisks had some understanding of the high-tech properties of quartz? And if so, could they have used obelisks to transmit energy over vast distances? Ancient astronaut theorists believe the answer is yes, and that evidence can be found by studying the work of Nikola Tesla. In July 1899, the famed scientist claimed to have invented a way to transmit electricity through the air, wirelessly, all over the world, by harnessing the Earth's natural conductivity, or what Tesla called standing waves. Giant transmitters could send and receive limitless amounts of electricity, flowing like invisible water. And one of the key components in his system was quartz crystal.
Typically, when we deal with the energy of electromagnetic waves, it's in what we call a propagating form. It's like the flashlight, you turn it on, and it moves. It propagates through space and goes from one place to another. A standing wave is kind of a different phenomena because the wave just oscillates in one place up and down, and the energy goes in between two different regions back and forth.
Tesla was proposing and tried to build this system of wireless power. He built the Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island in New York. Tesla was going to then hook this tower up to a power plant, and he was going to broadcast electricity. According to him, anti-gravity airships would draw power from these towers. Ships, cars, and other power plants could also draw from this broadcast power.
Was Tesla's technological breakthrough a modern scientific innovation, or could it have been a rediscovery of a lost alien technology? Some researchers believe that, like Tesla, ancient builders discovered the ability to harness and broadcast Earth's power. And the ancient equivalent to Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower may have been the Great Pyramid. The walls of this massive monument contain a high concentration of quartz crystal. And some believe the Great Pyramid, in conjunction with the obelisks, made up what may have been a global wireless energy network.
The pyramids were actually geomechanical devices. In other words, they were attached to the Earth. They were tuned to vibrate with the frequencies of the Earth, and they converted the energies of the Earth into electromagnetic energy.
It's possible that inside of some pyramids there might be some sort of energy, let's say some sort of equipment which creates waves. So I could imagine that some of the real gods, the extraterrestrials, they left some little technology inside the pyramid. And this technology was very super modern and powerful.
Giza, Egypt. In 1977, and then again in 1987, electronics engineer and inventor Joe Parr conducted experiments on the top of the Great Pyramid. Using equipment of his own design, Parr measured the pyramid's electrical, magnetic, and radioactive properties.
Joe Parr, who was my very close friend and research colleague, discovered what I believe is the most incredible discovery about the Great Pyramid and pyramids in general. Joe believed that the pyramids had an energy field around them. All pyramids had it. The problem is the pyramid energy field was usually not strong enough. So he developed in his laboratory a method for generating this pyramid energy, so then he could actually do scientific studies on it.
Over the last few decades, people have been experimenting with pyramids. What has come to the forefront of this is the fact that pyramids are an enigma. They really have powers which are very hard to explain. And so people like Joe Parr have been looking into this. When somebody goes to the top of the Great Pyramid and experiences this weird electromagnetic vibration, this is not just a coincidence, but this has to do with the fact that the Great Pyramid is causing this.
Joe Parr found out that if he put a model pyramid and spun it in a centrifuge through an alternating magnetic current, an energy field, or he calls it an orb or bubble, would form around the model pyramid. Joe found that this bubble or energy orb would block all known types of electromagnetic radiation, even gamma rays. Now, this was interesting. We don't know of any types of energy forces that could do this. This is the most incredible thing about Joe Parr's discovery.
In later laboratory experiments, Parr claimed to have discovered yet another strange physical phenomenon. The model pyramid became weightless in the energy field and began to move in a specific direction.
And he calculated the direction of this energy field where the pyramid would shoot out from. And guess what? It aligns exactly where we would see the constellation Orion. So Joe speculated that it went into hyperspace. This is speculation, but it makes a lot of sense. In string theory and physics, it postulates the existence of 6 additional spatial dimensions. So how do we know the way this energy fields were set up? It allows this pyramid to go into another dimension and travel. Joe never proved this, but before he died, he believed that the pyramid acted as a time machine, if you could unlock its key.
I believe that it's a gateway or a portal into multiple dimensions that would enable a transmission of people, objects, or consciousness from other dimensions into our dimension.
Is it possible, like Joe Parr believed, that the Great Pyramid could facilitate travel through interdimensional space? And if so, were there other pyramids with the same capabilities? Might the Earth's pyramids be connected, not simply by shape, but by purpose, perhaps as part of some otherworldly plan?
The ancient people were all building these same pyramids because it was a way for them to tap in to the natural energy of the Earth. And you have to think that whoever is guiding such a precise network of pyramids must have been a very advanced culture, probably extraterrestrials.
In all of this, I have one single question. Where are the blueprints? If all of this was so incredibly important, then wouldn't you think that we would have at least one record of some type of a blueprint? And the reality is, there is not a single piece. Why? Could it be because the blueprints have disappeared?
North Salem, New York, April 2019. Seeking a link between the Celts, Druids, and the New World, ancient astronaut theorist David Childress and British megalith expert Hugh Newman set out to visit one of the most mysterious stone structures in America, Balanced Rock.
I'm excited about seeing this balanced rock, and you think it's a dolmen, is that what you're saying?
I'm convinced it's a dolmen. It looks like something you would find in Britain.
Thousands of ancient dolmens have been found throughout Europe. Most are known to be at least 5,000 years old, and since rock cannot be carbon dated, could be far older. The dolmens were sometimes open tombs, under which a body would be ceremonially placed.
This monument that is known as Balanced Rock resembles almost exactly the stone dolmens of Europe.
It's a massive top stone, 60 to 90 tons are the estimates, and it's just a remarkable place.
And so geologists are saying that it's a glacial erratic, and a glacier just brought it. It's totally natural. As the glacier pulled out, it just sort of dropped them down on these stones.
That's what they say, but it just doesn't make sense, because it looks like it's constructed. You can see the shaping on the stones underneath it.
Just a few miles south of the mass UFO sightings that happened in Kent, New York in the 1980s, David and Hugh arrive at the mysterious formation.
Wow, look at that. Oh man, that is huge.
That is pretty impressive, isn't it?
That is a giant dolmen, isn't it?
I know, it's amazing.
Oh, wow. It looks like a European dolmen, doesn't it?
It does, it's identical, because we have these uprights. I mean, there were originally 7 there. There seems to be 5 or 6 there. It's hard to tell because some split. And the fact that it's granite is quite intriguing, combined with the nice rock underneath. So there is a potential piezoelectric effect. And this site is renowned for having kind of energies associated with it.
In the so-called piezoelectric effect, electrical energy accumulates in solids, rocks, and otherwise lifeless matter. Some claim that objects infused with piezoelectricity can produce strange and anomalous results.
Because this is granite, it's infused with tiny quartz crystals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there should be some energy coming out of it.
I believe there is, and also the landscape it's in, it sits right on top of a negative magnetic anomaly, directly under the main part of this stone.
So you think that this is some kind of vortex area, and there's a magnetic anomaly, and that perhaps they use that magnetic anomaly to move this giant boulder and place it here?
It's quite possible, and I think if you place them in the right spot, when there's magnetic anomalies or telluric currents underneath, which there's both here, and you have the piezoelectric effect. So when you place seeds or grains there, it will charge them up, and you'll get a higher yield and a better quality crop.
Seeds that are charged under here for 1 or 2 days, and then other seeds that aren't charged, they grow them together, and the ones from here grow like twice as fast.
This has been tested scientifically.
1967. As tensions in the Cold War rise, the military is on high alert to stop Soviet aggression. Key to the nation's defense is an arsenal of nuclear Minuteman ballistic missiles. 10 of these powerful weapons are stored in silos at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. Early in the morning on March 27th, a soldier is conducting a routine patrol at Malmstrom when he notices a red glowing orb is flying toward the base.
Soldiers above the ground reported this very large, substantial, glowing red orb, spherical type of glowing thing coming to where they were.
Stationed more than 40 feet below ground in the Missile Control Center was Lieutenant Robert Salas.
I was in charge of what we call a launch control facility, which controlled 10 nuclear missiles. These were Minuteman I intercontinental ballistic missiles. What I recall is getting a call from my topside guard. There was some lights flying over the facility. They were behaving strangely. They were flying very fast, stopping in midair, reversing course. They heard no engine noise. And he said, "These are not aircraft, sir." I said, "Well, make sure you call me back if something more significant happens." Maybe 5-10 minutes later, he calls back. This time he's screaming into the phone. He's clearly frightened. He said, "I'm looking at a reddish-orange pulsating light that's hovering right above the front gate."
According to Lieutenant Salas, moments after the call, the missiles began to malfunction.
We hear these horns go off. We looked over at the board. This was a bank of lights. The missiles started going from operational to no-go. We lost all 10 of them, right in rapid succession, while this object was still up there.
This was a case that, whatever you think about UFOs, illustrates why this is a serious national security problem. Salas, at the time, was told this isn't the first time this has happened. This was a systemic issue. And for every one of these cases we've heard, who knows how many cases there are that we haven't heard.
Whoever, whatever this craft was, they knew exactly what it took to disable our missile system.
Is it possible, as Robert Salas believes, that the glowing red orb deactivated the nuclear missiles? According to UFO researchers, a similar event occurred 4 years later.
One astonishing story happened on July 2nd, 1971. It was aboard the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS John F. Kennedy. The witness who wrote about this said the ship was coming back from the Caribbean, and he sees what he describes as a large, glowing, orange, pulsating, luminous sphere. This thing is over the aircraft carrier, and it's disabled the ship's communications, at which point the ship goes on battle stations. But for the next 20 minutes, weapon systems failed to function. At some point, this sphere went away. A few days later, there was a message from the ship's captain on the intercom just saying no one was expected to speak about it.
But the U.S. was not the only nation whose military reported strange encounters with orbs. The Soviet Union allegedly experienced at least one similar UFO encounter at a nuclear missile base in Ukraine.
In the 1980s, the Soviet Union kept its missile silos in Ukraine. And one day, over one of those missile sites, an orb appeared. And the controllers in the sites looked down and they said, "The missiles are fueling." Nobody told them to fuel. The controller tried to stop it. They didn't have control. Suddenly, they saw on their boards launch codes were being entered for the United States. The countdown started. The panicked controllers tried to shut it down, but they couldn't. As the countdown progressed, suddenly they shut down, and the orb flew away.
According to former intelligence officer Lou Elizondo, interaction between orbs and nuclear facilities is still happening.
These orbs were being witnessed over our nuclear equities. So think of nuclear power plants, nuclear weapons development locations. And so I think it's safe to say that if you have something that can enter into controlled U.S. airspace with complete anonymity and unchallenged and outperform anything that we have, certainly from a national security perspective, that's a problem.
Could it be that extraterrestrial orbs are interacting with our military bases? And if so, for what purpose?
The fact is, many of these orbs have been seen over military installations and military equipment. To me suggests that if this is extraterrestrial in origin, whoever is visiting, they want to show a more technologically primitive society, hey, we can turn off your nuclear rocket silos.
Japan, March 11th, 2011. Emanating 43 miles off the eastern coast of the Oshika Peninsula. One of the largest earthquakes in recorded history, a magnitude 9.0, shakes the Earth. The massive movement of two tectonic plates instantly moves the entire Japanese mainland some 8 feet, ripping down buildings, setting fires, and killing thousands of people. But the worst is yet to come. The earthquake also triggers enormous tsunamis. Waves as high as 130 feet begin smashing ashore with devastating consequences.
One wave in particular struck the Fukushima Daiichi power generating plant and overwhelmed the safety systems, which caused the plant to enter a critical phase and release radioactive material into the atmosphere and into the water.
With the nuclear power plant's reactors melting down and radiation seeping into the atmosphere, the authorities evacuate the region. The only people who remain are employees who struggle for days to prevent a larger catastrophe from occurring. But according to eyewitnesses on the scene, these workers were not alone.
There were UFO sightings reported in some significant numbers in that area in the weeks and the days leading up to the earthquake and tsunami. And there were a number of UFO sightings reported in the immediate area directly afterward.
And this suggests the possibility that extraterrestrials were involved in stabilizing that situation. Because had that Fukushima plant melted down, it would have made a large swath of Asia uninhabitable for a very long time.
Is it possible that extraterrestrials became aware of this meltdown and they did something to lessen the impact of this disaster and ultimately save mankind from what could have been a much worse cataclysm?
Could extraterrestrials really have been present at the Fukushima meltdown? And might they have helped to prevent it from being an even more catastrophic disaster? Ancient astronaut theorists point out that similar accounts of strange objects seen in the sky were also reported 25 years earlier during the meltdown at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine.
A number of witnesses reported that there were UFOs hovering around the power station, and that even beams of light were coming down from these UFOs and doing something to the nuclear power plants and keeping them from having a much worse meltdown than they did have.
Some have speculated that the UFOs that were seen during the crisis may have been perhaps protecting us, trying to stave off a horrifying nuclear explosion, or if not protecting us, at least protecting our world.
Was it simply good fortune that the nuclear accidents at Fukushima and Chernobyl weren't far more deadly? Or is it possible that the UFOs eyewitnesses spotted were responsible for averting these catastrophes when humans were powerless to do so? Ancient astronaut theorists believe these encounters weren't random occurrences, but part of an extraterrestrial agenda that has been in place on Earth for thousands of years.
It appears that there is an ongoing plan in place a hidden hand in history that is manipulating events, that we are interacting with an alien civilization, and that we are experiencing the fruits of what they are offering us because our history is being intelligently guided and directed to steer us towards a particular outcome.
The Indus Valley, Pakistan, 1922. The Indian Archaeological Survey discovers the remnants of what is the largest ancient city of the Indus Valley civilizations, Mohenjodaro. The artifacts and architecture cataloged at the site indicate a metropolis prospered here nearly 4,600 years ago. But the skeletal remains found among the ruins tell a puzzling story.
I understand that they found a lot of radioactive ash there, and they found radioactive people there. And so the assumption is that there must have been some radiation event. And so it is possible that there was some kind of nuclear explosion there a long time ago. The problem is that in order to do that, in order for that to be the case, you would have to have some very advanced technology.
These people are just lying dead in the street. There's radioactive skeletons. There are ceramics that have been melted. It's as if some kind of atomic nuclear detonation went off in this area, totally destroying these cities and killing everyone. What we may be seeing is the residue of one of the ancient power plants used by extraterrestrials.
But if, as ancient astronaut theorists believe, Mohenjo-Daro was wiped out in a nuclear meltdown, where is the power plant that might have caused such mass devastation? Mount Kailash, western Tibet. At an elevation of nearly 22,000 feet, this mountain is one of the most distinctive peaks in the world.
This is a very interesting shape for a mountain. It is cone-shaped from one side and pyramid-shaped from another. And this is precisely the shape we see elsewhere in ancient Sumeria, ancient Egypt, various other ancient civilizations, whereby this pyramid-shaped object really is said to have some form of power, some kind of connection with the deity.
In the Eastern world, Mount Kailash is regarded as the spiritual center of the universe and the birthplace of 4 of the world's religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Taoism. For thousands of years, religious pilgrims have trekked here to perform the holy ritual of walking a 32-mile circular path carved along the mountain's base.
Everybody at one point in their lifetime had to go to this place to connect with the gods. And this is really the interesting aspect, because what is it about this mountain which sets it apart from other mountains? There are several possibilities. One of them is that the gods really took residence here.
Is it possible, as some ancient astronaut theorists speculate, that Mount Kailash was once inhabited or perhaps operated by the gods? They say the true significance of this mountain can be found detailed in an ancient Chinese drawing. The Mogao Caves, western China. Between 500 BC and 1500 AD, Buddhist monks stored thousands of scrolls and manuscripts inside a series of painted temples and shrines dug into a hillside approximately 600 miles north of Mount Kailash. Here, in 1907, Hungarian-born British explorer Arl Stein discovered a sealed-off room containing nearly 50,000 manuscripts in various languages.
Arl Stein finds this incredible place called the Cave of the Thousand Buddhas, which is sort of like a Buddhist hall of records. It's a cache of thousands upon thousands of ancient Buddhist texts. Included within this is the Diamond Sutra, which is the oldest printed manuscript known to human history.
The collection of ancient texts and relics also included a 2nd century AD Buddhist diagram of a cosmic mountain called Mount Meru, a sacred site believed to be a stairway connecting heaven and earth. For nearly 100 years, the ancient illustration drew little notice. But recently, the diagram caught the attention of a scientist from Northrop Grumman, who specializes in the development of advanced weapons for the military.
He said, I design particle beam weapons for a living, for the government. Do you realize that that's a blueprint for a particle accelerator? I went and compared the diagram of Mount Meru with an illustration of what's called a cyclotron, an atom smasher, which was used in the development of the A-bomb for the Manhattan Project. They're a perfect match for one another.
Orlstein's diagram of Mount Meru that he found seemed to show Mount Meru as some kind of particle beam accelerator or some device that was stacked up, had different lenses. It would have made it into some device that focused energy. The kind of energy needed would have required some tremendous power plant, something putting out enormous amounts of energy.
Might the nearly 2,000-year-old Buddhist diagram of Mount Meru actually depict a device that today would run on nuclear power?
Mongolian myth says that these celestial beings dwelled around Meru because of the energy that was emitted from it. It was a transmitter of this cosmic power that fed these celestial beings or kept them alive.
Whatever the purpose of this device was, it would have required some extremely powerful energy source, some type of nuclear power. And I think that power might have come from Mount Kailash. This wasn't a place that actually put out spiritual energy, but what we're talking about is a place that produced raw energy, technological energy. Potentially, we're talking about a power plant.
Wall, South Dakota, June 28, 2019. Ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos has asked Robert Salas to join him at the Minuteman Missile National Historic Site.
So how does it feel to be back after so many years?
This will be a kind of a strange deja vu.
Giorgio wants to learn firsthand what happened to Salas at Malmstrom in 1967. While many Minuteman missile sites were deactivated at the end of the Cold War, this facility has been carefully preserved in its original form. It remains almost identical to the Malmstrom site where Salas witnessed the UFO incursion.
A similar facility where your story happened that fateful night.
It's very similar. A lot of the sites looked exactly the same.
Where were you on that night?
Yeah, on that night I was 60 feet underground in a reinforced concrete capsule.
And now where are the actual silos?
The silos are about a mile or so away from this central position.
Can we check that out as well?
Let's do it.
That would be amazing.
Giorgio and Robert make their way to an adjoining silo where a deactivated Minuteman missile is preserved. They harness up and descend 30 feet to get a better look at a weapon that once held the power to obliterate millions in a split second.
Welcome to the Enterprise. So this is one of these Minuteman missiles.
Exactly. Minuteman 1. The first missile went into the hole in '62, just at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, just before. These have a range of about 6,000 miles. The warhead we had was 1.2 megatons. Just to put it in perspective, the bomb that hit Hiroshima was 15 kilotons, so 15,000 tons versus 1.2 million tons of TNT equivalent. So we had 150 of these just at Malmstrom alone.
We should all be so lucky that these things were never fired.
Absolutely.
Because that would have been complete devastation.
Absolutely.
When your incident happened, do you remember whether there was any damage to the missile itself?
Let me tell you what happened, and there was no damage. What happened was signals were sent to each of the 10 missiles, allegedly, from the UFO, penetrating 60 feet of earth and concrete that upset this guidance and control system. That's what shut the missiles down.
I venture to say that it was not a short circuit.
They could not isolate it to any short circuit. And believe me, they did extensive investigation on this thing.
Well, this was incredible, but I also would like to see your command center. So can we go check that out?
You bet.
All
Let's
right.
go to the Launch Control Center. Let's go in here.
Thank you very much.
Then we go down the elevator. And there's the blast door, George.
Wow.
Look at this thing.
This is huge.
It was, of course, designed to withstand nuclear blast. So let's go on in.
Wow. So this is it?
This is the capsule. We're down here for 24 hours. You know, it even smells the same. I remember the smells, yeah.
Tell me what happened that night.
I was in charge. My commander was out. He was taking a nap. First thing that happened is I got a phone call from the topside guard. Sir, the guards and I are out here. We're looking up at the sky, and we see these strange lights flying around above us. They're flying very fast, stopping on a dime, reversing course. No engine noise. I said, okay, let me know if something more interesting happens, basically. And I went back to my book. So about 5 minutes later, he calls back, and this time he's screaming into the phone. I mean, he's really frightened. And he said, I've got all the guards out here, weapons drawn, and we see this gigantic red-orange object, oval-shaped, hovering above the front gate. I was sure we were under some sort of an attack, and I said, use whatever force necessary to make sure nothing comes in the fenced area. So the next thing I did is I come over here, wake up my commander, and start telling him about the phone calls. And all of a sudden, we get klaxons, horns. We both look over at the control panel here, and boom, 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 one right after the other. All no-go.
And each of these missiles is on an independent system.
Exactly. They're not like Christmas tree lights where if one goes out, the rest of them go out. No, it's not like that. Meanwhile, my commander was calling command post. So when he was finished with that call, he turns to me and says the same thing happened at another launch facility a week earlier.
I mean, it has to be incredibly startling and disconcerting that someone else with higher technology is able to disable our missiles.
Right.
I mean, if it wasn't us, the US, and it wasn't the Russians or the Chinese or whoever, well, what or who is left?
Exactly, and that's how I come to the conclusion that these were extraterrestrial objects, or they were constructed off Earth, because we had nothing that could do anything like this, either then or now.